Hello and welcome everybody to a brand new episode of r/MaliciousCompliance. My name's Ryan, the official host here on Reddit Voice, and I look forward to bringing you guys today's top stories. Before I do, I'd really appreciate it, however, if you can hit that subscribe button as well as make sure you got notifications turned on. That way you could stay up to date with all the latest and greatest here on the channel. Now that we got formalities out of the way, let's get wild, baby. Woo! Or, well, I mean, at least let's read some stories. Our first story of the evening is another classic tale of schools run by fools. A wise young commenter once told me before something along the lines of, Ryan? Well, he didn't say Ryan, but I assume, Ryan? Are there any schools that aren't run by fools? With every video on this channel, I grow ever so slightly more confident in my answer to that question. Without further ado, U/Juana Eat presents, Did You Mean to Not Turn in the Project? I'm a college student studying engineering, and I transferred as a junior this past year. While trying to find my way in this new college, I joined an extracurricular project team that participated in the same competition that my old college participated in. I had experience as a leader in my old club, and was ready for the new experience of letting someone else lead for once. As someone interested in technical writing, I chose to join teams who had written project deliverables. The competition we compete in is annual and is very comprehensive in their rules and rubrics about deadlines and requirements. This team that I joined had participated in this competition for nearly a decade and had a few successes along the way. Despite the fact that these successes had happened before the time of almost anyone currently on the team, they still felt like they were top-notch. After reading the judges' comments on the papers that they turned in, I really didn't understand how they could feel so proud of the work they put forth. To say the team was disorganized is an understatement. There was a sort of manufactured bureaucracy where people in leadership positions were intentionally less transparent with those who didn't have the same standing in the club. This caused lapses in communication, duplicated efforts, and incomplete work deadlines. This wasn't the case for every leader in the club, but it was certainly the case for the team leader of the team. I was on that team, and I was the VP of the club. When I joined the team, I made sure to figure out who my points of contact would be. I wanted to get to work on the major paper associated with this project because it was already late October and there was quite a bit of technical work to figure out in order to write it properly. The TL hadn't ever competed in this competition and had the same lackadaisical attitude as the rest of the other seasoned members who could pull off a project in a short amount of time due to their sheer knowledge and experience. I found out the day after I joined the club that there was a big deadline coming up in 10 days. I found out the TL hadn't even started this and seemed unaware to this deadline before I had brought it up. When I met with him and the president of the club, I made a map of info that we needed from different people and insisted on holding a meeting with certain leads of the team. After much insisting, they arranged to hold this meeting several days later, just a couple of days before the deadline. I ask TL if I can come to the meeting, and he says no. I ask the president, and he says that I'd be overstepping, despite the fact that I'm on the sub-team writing this assignment, and the entire point of this meeting is to gather info for that assignment, because it's taking place at the part of a leadership meeting, and I am not leadership. I was left waiting for the crunch of time when I'd finally be provided with vital information to work on this part of the project. When they had the meeting and relayed what they had done, I had to scramble with them to edit what they had put together and still try to fill in holes because I wasn't there to ask pointed questions. The thing we turned in was rushed and not of high quality. When I asked about the gigantic technical paper in October, the general consensus from TL and several members of the leadership team was, it's pretty early to start that. We wrote that paper in 3 days last year, and our team placed top quarter in the competition. The VP even told me to go home and to not worry about it. I tried scoping out TL's plan for this project, and it appeared as though he hadn't even fully read the rubric. At this point, I nitpicked the rubric and meticulously created a task sheet that would aid in managing this project so that we wouldn't miss any major portions of it like the last paper. I showed it to the TL and he seemed generally okay with it, so I figured we'd use that to keep track of progress from then on. Turns out he didn't care to use it and continued to work on his own folder without communicating that to the rest of the team. There's a second paper on a side project that the team is required to do for the competition. I was very involved in my last team's side project and instrumental to the paper writing, so I wanted to see what was up with this team's stuff. I found the judge's comments, specifically pointing out grammatical errors and failure to abide by the rubric, but I couldn't seem to find the paper in the drive. I asked the VP for it, and she, in a very unprofessional way, told me that the other people would handle it and I didn't need to worry about it. I eventually got the paper through some pushing. I got to work on the project and updated the task management sheet I created months ago that everyone had agreed on at this point was the best way to keep track of the project, and realized that no one else is hitting these deadlines as we go along. Even TL has some excuse for not doing his part. At one point, I accidentally sit in on a leadership meeting and I find out that there's a lot of juicy technical stuff I haven't been exposed to because I don't go to 15 hours of various club meetings a week. Apparently, the TL had been exposed to all of this and didn't bother to take notes. Since this info was very useful for the paper, I asked him to take notes. When he replied that he already did, I asked to be a part of the meeting. To that, I was turned down because it was not my place to sit in because I wasn't a lead. During second semester, a major change was made to this competition, and it caused the written deliverables to have a much higher value in the final score. Since the technical sub-teams on this team historically don't deliver, this was the chance to actually place at the competition. Major decisions were being made that I had valuable info for and could have used to do my job better. I was putting my time and resources on the line at this point because it was extremely important that we take advantage of the changes. I also figured it would be a chance for some leads to see my value and take me seriously. Again, I'm not allowed to partake in the meetings with leadership in the club where decisions would be made about my resources. So deadlines come around and the technical papers finally due. Guess who's up late because no one took the deadline seriously? This is exactly what I was trying to avoid, and to no avail. I'm stitching things together as people are still writing them, and TL is occasionally coming back in to watch. As I'm referencing old documents, I realized the outline TL gave me was copy and pasted from the paper that was placed 3 years ago. Apparently, it took him 3 weeks to figure out how to copy an outline that was well outdated in the first place. At this point, he is still insisting on keeping insignificant things while running the risk of running out of space. I don't even fight him and override these silly comments. Again, no energy for this shit. 2 days before this giant technical paper is due, the president asks me to change the cover. The cover had already been approved by everyone, including him, and was already turned in on another document. This was the last thing I wanted to worry about when it abided by the rules and so many other things did not. I had a feeling TL was behind this, yet again not bothering to communicate with me about things in a timely manner. I find out about this time that TL is also working in his own folder instead of the drive we set up at the beginning of the year. He hadn't yet shared it with me at this point in time and wasted my time trying to find the info. The only reason I had found out was through the president, who he had already shared it with. Odd move considering he didn't share it with the person who was designated to format it onto the final document. Me. So we turn this thing in and I'm physically sick from the late nights and mentally tired from the difficulty I've been given from the entire year. I've been told no when asking for info and don't worry about it so many times. I had no trust and no responsibility. It clearly didn't matter that I was ready to put myself out there when there was a time crunch that jeopardized the project. There was one more assignment that fell under TL's reign. I had mentioned the timeline of it a month ago and people were definitely aware. Remember that significant competition change I mentioned before? That made this last year's assignment very point-heavy and vital to any chance at placing in this competition. It was optional, but really only to any team that didn't care about overall score. I figured TL could naturally step up and take the lead that his position entailed. I began to intentionally not say anything about the project to see if I would be as successful as the leads always said it would. The next 2 team meetings were canceled an hour before they would have happened, characteristic to how TL handled meetings. No mention of this project was made during those 2 weeks, and I intentionally didn't raise a thumb. From the little that I heard about the other sub-meetings, this assignment wasn't being prioritized. The last week, I let my friend in on the fact that I wasn't doing a single thing unless the lead mentioned it. I had been told that I was overstepping as a new member and that I'm doing more than I should be doing, so I figured I'd listen for once and relax. In the last 3 months, I had started my own club, so I would have an established extracurricular by the next year by whether or not this club was a bust. Woo! Was that sentence butchered. The 3rd week passes, and the day before this last assignment was due, TL canceled the meeting once again, saying that the team was out for the rest of the year. Yippee! Summer break. So I decided to finally figure out the details. Within 10 minutes of his message, I asked what the update for this assignment was. A full 24 hours pass after the deadline before he responds that they didn't turn it in. All of the reasons he states are bogus and inconsequential. My intuition and involvement in the club tell me that it was put off until last minute and no one could figure out how to put it together well. They just let that one go. I want to emphasize that this year was one of the few years this team in its current state would have had the chance at placing. The part of the competition that they regularly failed at was out of the competition, and they could have stepped it up. A full year's worth of work was put in to be thrown away in the end because of that last assignment. There wasn't even a slim chance at placing overall. Too bad placing also meant relatively large cash prizes that the team could have used for next year's project. After all that, the VP who I mentioned before became president for next year. There are a list of reasons why I wouldn't be sane working under her rule, and some outweigh even the negligent TL's shortcomings as a leader. I started my own club, and some of the people who I originally introduced to the project decided to join my club because of the chaos they experienced on that team. Someone who wasn't even on the sub-team is now the TL for next year because the entire team dispersed at the end of the year. Nobody there actually wants to dedicate their time to the technical paper, and the paper's going to turn out like it did before, solely because the technical people don't give a damn. I didn't mention that the college I came from was a junior college competing in this competition for the first time. The team of inexperienced underclassmen beat this team last year. Ironically, the same people who pat themselves on the back for doing so well last year were the ones who made it difficult for me to work on this team. TLDR, I spent a year working on a project being told not to worry about parts of it and to listen to the team lead. When I finally did, the team didn't turn in a major portion of the project that would have given them a chance to place at the competition. Well, you/Juana Eat, I must say this is one of the most well-written malicious compliances I have ever seen. Thank you, soldier. You're doing God's work. Genuinely, you guys have no idea how much, well, I mean, I guess you could have some sort of idea, but you have no idea how much easier it becomes to do these videos when there's just fucking grammatical precision in these stories. Well, that about does it. If you're listening to this, my friend, you've reached the end of today's video. Congratulations. If you like the story, be sure to leave a like on the video, as well as make sure you're subscribed with notifications turned on so you could stay up to date with all the latest and greatest. In case you're new here, my name's Ryan, the official host here on Reddit Voice, and I upload just about every single day on this channel. Just about. Without further ado, so long, au revoir, and I will see you in the next video.